out on the stage when I'm about to get it. Like I bust out of this cage when I started winning. Watch the bright lights fade when I'm on them swinging. Plus I'm about to get paid like I'm on a mission. This ain't fight night, baby, this is night night. Yeah, feeling right, knuckles clenched, I got the mic tight. Lay my belt on the bench cause it's in my sights. Yeah, plus I'm coming for your head, Chuck, ice tight. I ain't no stranger to circumstance, don't notice I'm about to dance. I keep my ship tight cause any moment I'm throwing hands. I'm blowing up on your man, KOing him on demand. Fight of the night, bitch, I'll put ice in my corner, man. Coming for the win, no weakness. Go down a mission, no secret. Flick of the wrist, no sleep, it's coming for your head.
Hi guys, welcome to another For the Win MMA interview. Our guest today is somebody that has been involved in the MMA business and the fight game throughout his entire life. He is a member of the Boxing Hall of Fame and the UFC Hall of Fame. He is the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for the UFC. I have the pleasure of having with us today Mr. Marc Ratner. Mr. Ratner, it's such an honor to have you here. Welcome to For the Win MMA.
No, it's my pleasure, and I'm delighted to talk to your audience and to you. So any question you want to ask is fine.
This is what we're here for, sir, and I really appreciate your taking the time here. Let's start by talking about your induction into the UFC Hall of Fame. What we saw was the culmination of a process that started a long time ago with your first involvement in the fight game throughout boxing. You had the chance to be a part of the regulatory bodies and the governing bodies in Las Vegas. And now we look back and we see all this amazing legacy. You're a man that has broadened the boundaries for MMA and the sport as a whole. I tried to find the right words to describe this for the Spanish-speaking audience, and I'm left with such an amazement and such a pride in what you do, sir. So what I wanted to know was, how do you feel about all this honor that you have been given by the UFC, the fans, and the community, well removed from the opportunity? Because I know that you're a private person, like Mr. Fertitta said in your induction. You were probably kind of embarrassed beforehand, and I wanted to get your thoughts now that some time has passed and all the hugs were given and all that. So how do you feel, sir?
Well, overwhelming is still the right word. About 4 or 5 months before the actual ceremony, they surprised me at a fight night when all of a sudden I was watching a video, and then I saw this wall of credentials, and I knew they were my credentials. And so I had no idea, and they said our newest member of the 2020, it really was, Hall of Fame is going to be Marc Ratner. And then behind me, unbeknownst to me, my children and my wife somehow got tested that day without my knowledge, and they were there. So the whole thing was overwhelming and quite surprising. So now, 3 or 4 months later, whatever it is, 6 months later, we have the ceremony, and it was to have Lawrence Epstein and Lorenzo Fertitta introduce me. I didn't even need to have a speech. They put everything that I was going to talk about in there. And yes, it was a little bit, what I didn't want it to be a eulogy, just let it be just introduce me, and it's a little flowery. You said a private person. I'm more of a humble person. I don't like all the attention on me. And anything I get, there's so many more people involved than just me. And I was just the face of regulatory stuff. But it's a lot more than me.
I'm pretty sure that all this love that you're getting speaks volumes of something else that Mr. Fertitta said and Dana White has said in the past about you and your character and the way you move around sports, is the fact that you had no enemies in boxing. You've been always a person that brings out the best of everybody involved in the fight game, which is really, really hard. What would you attribute that love to? Well,
first of all, I know they like to say that there was some of the officials didn't like if they didn't get the right fights, and so there's not everybody who thinks I was a great guy. But overall, no, boxing is the director of a commission is still a PR job. You have to be able to talk to the press. You have to work with the fighters, with the corner people, and obviously I had two of the craziest or three of the craziest nights ever in boxing, with the bike fight, with the fan man flying in, with Floyd and the whole Zab Judah, when the father and the uncle jumped in the ring. So I've had plenty of controversy. And I guess I can attribute part of it as being a sports official in other sports and knowing you have to be calm in certain situations. And luckily I was, because all hell was breaking loose around me. So it's a fabulous memories now. Back then was pretty scary.
Absolutely, sir. Man, you just talk about the bite, and just the memories start flowing for me. I was a little kid when I saw that happen. And right now, it blows my mind that I'm talking to one of the persons involved in this situation. Of course, for those who don't know, Mr. Mike Tyson one time bit the ear of a Mr. Evander Holyfield in a really, really weird situation. And Mr. Ratner here was the... what was your role specifically? You were the chief officer?
I was the executive director of the Nevada Athletic Commission. This fight was in 1997, so that's almost 25 years ago. But the memories are still there, and I have pictures of the referee Mills Lane calling me up to the ring and telling me that Mike bit him, and then you can, I mean, the audience is going crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of good memories.
Yeah, it had to be so hectic at that time, right? With everybody in there watching it. How did you live that personally? Because you seem so cool and collected in the footage. I see you talking to Mills Lane and really with ice in your veins in a situation which could turn into something much more explosive, I feel, right?
Well, I reacted. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. And when Mike bit him again, and then the fight was over. But I say this, after the first bite, if Mike would have come back and knocked Evander out right afterwards, then you wouldn't be talking to me today, because then it would have all been on me. I would have been blamed for it. So,
well, history is fair, sir, and I don't want to get stuck in this particular chapter of your career, because there's so many of them, sir. I would like to talk about your start in the MMA business. You started in what it's now been called the dark ages of the MMA business, right? You were involved with the Nevada State Athletic Commission during this transformation for the UFC, in terms of being this sport where it was marketed as no holds bar, one man two men enters, one man leaves, that kind of thing, which it was spectacle. It wasn't a sport at that time. And you, sir, you were brought in by Mr. Fertitta, Mr. White into the fold, and you gave your seal of approval, your brand and expertise in order to get the UFC where it needed to be. Can you imagine, sir, looking back right now after you were inducted in the Hall of Fame, when you said yes in that meeting, would you ever imagine that you would be here today in terms of your career and everything that the sport has gone through?
No, my familiarity with the sport starts when the commission approved it, which was in 2001. So I had watched the sport a little bit, but in prior years, this goes back to the late 90s, I went on a TV show with Larry King, you may have read about this, where I said the fight with no rules, anything goes, no holds barred, we can never approve it. And when they finally in New Jersey came up with the unified rules, then the commission approved the sport. Our first fight was, I think, September of '01 with Tito Ortiz and Matoshenko. And then I got more and more familiar. I came on board, like you said, in 2006, and there was around 20 states that had approved the sport, and my job was to go around the country with others to get the sport approved.
Well, sir, in that regard, you've done such an amazing work with everybody involved, because, like you said, it's a team effort. It's not only yourself, but it's fair to say that you had a huge involvement in all this. And one of the main staples of that involvement, at least for me, is the New York saga, which is by far one of the most exciting news for every single MMA fan in the last 10 years. to have Madison Square Garden as a playground for the UFC, so to speak, sir. So what I wanted to know was, well, you've been involved in all this struggle getting the sport regulated throughout the states, and there is this huge spot in the map, which is New York. And I want you to talk me through, when you saw that the only place left was New York, what was going through your mind at that time in terms of strategy, and how did everybody involved approach this major milestone, which is New York?
Well, we started, it took us about 8 years of going to Albany. I probably was there maybe 29, 30 times. We've lost count. And it was never about the sport of mixed martial arts. There was some political problems with one of the unions here in Nevada, and they were able to, with their sister union in New York, stop us from ever getting a vote. So we would go up there, we would get right to go to the Senate, go through the different committees, then we'd try to get a vote in the, what they call the assembly there, and somehow the speaker always said, you don't have enough support here, and so every year we would get to the goal line, but never were able to cross it. The speaker was indicted and then convicted, actually, but not with us, but with other things too. And once there was a new speaker, we finally got a vote in 2016, overwhelmingly passed. I think it was 124 to 14, and whatever it was. And had our first show there, November 2016. Just came back from New York 2 weeks ago with a sellout crowd and a crazy, wonderful card. So it makes all the travails and all the aggravation going to get it done all worth it now. Now it's over with, and we've got it. We've been there for 5 years, and what a great market it is.
Absolutely, sir. I completely agree. And like I said before, I feel this was a team effort with a lot of people involved, and I saw the efforts from a lot of fighters such as Chris Weidman, Alaya Quinta, Ronda Rousey. There were a lot of people involved in that lobbying process, if you will, because at the end of the day, it's lobbying, right? Because having the people there, having the champions there, how do you feel it made an impact on everybody that had to take a vote to see that the sport was not comprised by brutes? In a way, right? You have people like Weidman, who's really well-spoken. You have people like Rousey, who does incredible work in the mic as well. Having those people as ambassadors of the sport, how do you feel it made an impact in the regulators at the time?
It's a funny thing. John Jones was there, Matt Hughes, and Matt Hamill, I believe. So there was a lot, Matt Serra, a lot more than I and the fighters. But what was most interesting to me, the ones who were most against the sport, and there's a generational thing too. Their staffs might know, but they didn't like it, the actual assembly people. At the end of the day, before we left, all they wanted was a picture with Ronda or an autograph, even the most adamant against it. But they all got in line to get a picture and to speak with them, whether it was John or whatever fighter it was. And our fighters were so gracious about it. Dana didn't like the whole process. He came up there a couple of times, but it was just, you have to wait around and sit around. It was just too much for him. Lorenzo and Lawrence and Kirk Hendrick, they were all instrumental in that. And just, you had to be patient and meet these people. But I knew if we ever got a vote, it would pass.
For sure, sir. Would you say that this is your biggest accomplishment in the sport of MMA?
Well, because New York is such an important market, it becomes very, very important. I think that was, whether it's me or it's the company, getting New York also probably helped in the sale to Endeavor, because you can't have a real sport without having the state of New York. I mean, it's real important in that regard. So for the UFC, I'll say it that way. It was a big milestone.
And what a way to debut in the New York State with such an amazing card as UFC 205, sir. What were your impressions when you stepped in the venue that day, personally? Because I know that you took a bunch of pictures. There was a lot of handshaking when the boat passed, but the day of the fight, when everybody was getting in and you can feel the people screaming and you can feel all the excitement. How was that for you, sir?
Well, it started with the weigh-in, and it was, I don't know, 18,000 people at the weigh-in. It was Eddie Alvarez and Connor, and the night of the fight, yeah, I was like a proud father looking at my kids here, and it was a little emotional. I was emotional when we got the vote, but it was such a big night, and the Garden people were so excited. We go there every year, and yeah, like I said, it made the travails, the 8 years, not as important because we finally got it done.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I saw the card happening. Like, if there is a card that can fit all this struggle to get New York legalized in terms of the regulation of the sport, and having such a historic night, such a landmark event, you probably felt, yeah, this is it. This is why we do this, right?
Yeah, very, very happy moment, and then the fights were so good, and yeah, you could feel the excitement, you could feel the energy, and with the music and the crowd, it was a pent-up demand. So no, it was wonderful.
Well, what is wonderful to me, sir, is not only that you were able to unlock New York as an iconic city to develop the MMA business in, but also you've been broadening the frontiers of the sport throughout the world. You are known as a man responsible for getting the sport in different countries in Europe. You have a huge amount of work done in Brazil in terms of the athletic commission there and all the regulation affairs there. I would like to know, how do you manage to get all people involved in the same page in such a hectic sport as MMA?
Well, we have a team, and my UK group travels quite a bit, but they don't have fights, and so they helped us regulate in Chile and Argentina, I think Uruguay, and certainly Brazil. South America is a fabulous place for us to have fights, and the COVID slowed everything down, obviously, and as the world gets back to normal, you'll see us again in South America. Maybe the first one will be in Brazil, but there's a big market there, and yeah, we have a staff, and when we go to most countries in South America or even in Europe, they don't have athletic commissions, so we self-regulate there, but we act just as if it was a Nevada Athletic Commission. The right officials, the same health standards, the same medical testing, so we make sure everything is done the same way, and that's real important.
Absolutely, sir. I was wondering about how, well, what I said before about people in South America, people in Europe. My thing with development in this part of the world is that, like you said, Brazil is such a huge market for the sport, but the rest of South America feels, I don't want to say unrelated to Brazil, but the language barrier does something to the rest of the countries in South America that we feel it's a different continent in terms of MMA. You mentioned Argentina, you mentioned Uruguay, you mentioned my country, Chile. How do you see, in your expertise, that the sport will evolve here in South America? Because, like you said, you and the UFC have been here before, but we usually don't get so many cool visitors as you guys. So I'm sorry, sir.
No, I was just going to say, one of the most important parts is developing fighters in these countries. So we had a real good Chile fighter from Chile.
Yeah.
And so there's all this interest. And so when you come there, I mean, people start to know about the sport. We had Poncinibio from Argentina. I don't know how to say his name.
Poncinibio.
That's better. Poncinibio. And so when we had our fight in Buenos Aires, big crowd, and they love him. And that's a key. The more we do fights, whether in Brazil or in South America, and then in our looking for a fight in our fight nights, we develop these fighters, and it's, if you're going to go to these places, you need them there, and that's how you build the sport. And that's why we're always having tryouts and having these shows, looking for a fighter from these countries.
Absolutely. Well, here in Chile, we had the pleasure of having Diego Rivas. He was the face for the UFC here in Chile at one time. Now we have Ignacio Bahamondes. And yeah, we're excited. We need more Chileans in the cards, man. So we're excited to see all the progress and all these opportunities that you mentioned, such as the Dana White Contender Series, the Looking for a Fight Series. They're all feeders to what it is today, what the UFC is today. Sir, I would love to know your experience in terms of leadership, because for me, one of the main ingredients of your special brand of doing things is the fact that you are a leader that it's not like the Dana White leadership, right? You're not as flamboyant as he is on the mic, right? He's the man to do it, and that's okay. Every major circus, and I mean this with all love, every major circus needs a proper, I don't know the expression in English now. I kind of shot myself in the foot.
A ringmaster, the guy in front of it.
Exactly, that was the expression I was looking for. But you, sir, you have your own brand of leadership, and that leadership opens doors, as we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. So I would like to know, what have you learned as a leader, working throughout all these major processes for the sport? What's your biggest take in terms of leadership?
I think for me, it's you have your own team, and you treat them as co-workers. It's not leader and followers, more or less. They're your partners, and I've always been that way. They're your friends, but they know who the boss is in certain ways. But no, I don't consider leadership more just a passive way of. But we make decisions between us, and nothing unilateral. If I can help it. I'm involved in other sports in the same way as commissioner of officials, and that's the way I work. So,
that's a really good segue, sir, because I wanted to talk about your passion for sports in general, because you're not only a man with this huge reputation in the fight game, whether it's MMA or boxing, but also you had experience as a referee for football, and you are constantly involved in other sports. What kind of a role sports play in your life in general? Where does this love for sports comes from?
Well, I was never a great athlete. I've been on teams, but might have been the second string player, so I've always loved sports. I started watching boxing in person probably when I was 18 or 19. I got to watch Sonny Liston spar, and Floyd Patterson. They used to let us in to watch their training, and I've always loved the fights and went to them. Getting involved with the athletic commission as an inspector back in the early 80s, that was a great thing for me, and working in the back rooms, whether it was with Tyson or De La Hoya or Floyd, and all the way through. It's just been a wonderful time, and in the last 20 years, I've made a living in sports. It's the last 30 years, I should say, which is remarkable. As I said, I'm also the commissioner of officials for high school sports. I'm very passionate about high school sports. And just last night, I was running the clock for a big Division I basketball team called Gonzaga versus UCLA with a big, huge crowd. And I have to concentrate on that, so I can't think about in UFC or boxing. I'm doing basketball. So it's all interrelated, but great.
I think it's beautiful, sir. I love your involvement in sports in general. The fact that you give so much importance to young people's sports, to go to the high school games, to share your expertise with people that are just maybe getting started. And yeah, I totally love that about you, sir, which is amazing for me, is the fact that you, like you said yourself, been able to make a living for all these years in such a beautiful environment. Right? You mentioned Floyd Patterson. You mentioned other legends of the sport of boxing. You've been around quite a few legends, sir. I know that you're a man who doesn't like to brag about that kind of thing, but as a fight fan, I'm pretty sure you're well aware that you hang around with some legends of the sport. I would love to know what's your favorite anecdote, whether it's MMA, whether it's boxing. You've been around quite a few legends. What's your favorite moment from all those interactions?
Well, to see Ali fight in person, and I saw him, I think, 9 times, so that was unbelievable. I just remember driving my kids to school, and I see this guy running by a park, just running, and I knew it was a fighter, and it's Mike Tyson, and he stopped by the car and said hello to my kids and to me. That was very cool. When I see, I went to the fights last weekend to see Crawford fight Porter, a wonderful fight. And I ran into Fernando Vargas, one of my favorite guys, and Winky Wright. And so I had fun talking with them. I've been away from boxing 15 years, but they still know me from those days. And so that was joyful. Getting into the Boxing Hall of Fame, another one I never dreamt I would go to, be involved. And what I remember, you have to make a speech at all these things. And when I got up, I had to step almost over Ray Leonard, Duran, and Hagler. I mean, they were right sitting behind me. And that's a big, oh my God, I got to speak. And here's 3 of the best fighters in the world. And what a big thrill that was. Yeah, so I have so many memories, so many fights. And I really have a problem saying what was my favorite fight or what my favorite fighters are. Going back, Salvador Sanchez, this is a long time ago, was one of the great lightweights out of Mexico. He died in a car crash at a very young age. He was one of my favorites. I somehow loved Sonny Liston. I watched him spar every day and work out. And as I said, Ali is very, very special. But the new breed, there's always new guys. And I still love going to boxing. And I don't miss the day-to-day stuff. When I'm at the fights, I miss that part.
Yeah, the bureaucracy overall, you don't miss it, but the sport itself, right. It's like it never leaves you. That's my feeling. Well, since you're a man who's well-versed in both MMA and boxing, I would love to hear your take on everything that's happening right now with this. I heard it from somebody else. It said something along the lines of the bastardization of boxing, of this trend of having people that don't necessarily have their right boxing acumen, maybe challenging UFC fighters. You see YouTubers fighting who knows who. So I wanted to get your take, since you're an authorized voice in both sports. How do you feel about all this phenomenon?
Well, I'm a purist in both sports, but I'm also a realist. And if a fighter can make money doing this, and I can't say that the Paul brothers shouldn't be able to make money, and they're smart enough to do this. Ben Askren made a lot of money that he was retired, and Tyron, he got a big payday out of it, and so I'm sort of torn. I want these guys that they can make a big payday when they're done. God bless them. But as a purist, no, I don't want to see Evander fight somebody at 50 years old like he did. I'm not for that at all. Tyson looked pretty good when he fought Roy Jones and that thing. But when they have these exhibitions, I'd say this: you can play football, you can play soccer, but when you play fighting, once a guy gets hit, you're going to fight back.
You're not playing.
No, it's not playing. The first reaction is to hit the other guy harder, and so far that really hasn't happened, but it could, and you don't want to see anybody get hurt. So I'm for regulated fights, and but as I say, if a guy can make money, then it's just sort of a one-off. God bless him.
Well, you said it. For me, the most enjoyable fight of all this phenomenon is precisely Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. because both guys are legends of the sport, and it felt right in a way. Even though they're older gentlemen right now and they're not at the top of their capability, it's still something fun to watch. It's still, you can see that there's a lot of love and respect between both of those guys. I felt that much closer to the heart than, let's say, one of the Paul brothers fighting Tyrone or fighting, I don't know, Ben Askren. That's my take personally, so I'm glad we're on the same page here. Sir, you said it yourself, it's hard for you to talk about who your favorite fighter, what's your favorite fight, but if we can just focus on this year alone in the MMA business, we've had such plentiful wars, man. There's a lot of things that were beautiful to see. I wanted to hear what today, we're just a few days away from December, the end of the year is coming. What sticks with you in terms of the best fights during this year?
Well, you become a creature of the moment, more or less. I mean, last weekend or 2 weeks ago, we had a great fight when you had Gaethje fight in New York, and I mean, those fights they're so fresh in my memory, and we had great fights in Abu Dhabi. It just goes on, and I think I can't speak for the whole sport of MMA, but the UFC, the last 3 fights we've had have all had fight of the years on them, which is really saying something. And even the Misha Tate fight last weekend, which was a real good fight, and yeah, so our business is hot right now. The fights are hot, and now we're coming up to December 11th. That's going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing Amanda fight, and yeah.
It's an exciting time to be an MMA fan, for sure.
Yeah, it really is.
Sir, well, one of the things that, for me at least, it's such a phenomenon in the MMA business during the last 2 years, it's of course the way the UFC handled the pandemic, is the way that you guys were able to, you guys basically took it on the chin and came back right up. That's the way I see it. It's in a real fighter's way. And that, of course, had to do a lot with the efforts of your team and other teams within the UFC. I wanted to hear your thoughts on how all this pandemic situation affected the UFC and the steps required from your perspective to get us where we are today, where it basically feels that there's no pandemic in a way, because we still get amazing fights every week. And like you said yourself, we've been in a tear for the last month, having every single week. It's a little bit of a recency bias, like our friend John Anik says, but yeah, we've been getting fed all these amazing fights, and that happens only because there's a team that really fights for the fighters in such different ways. So if you could enlighten me in that regard, sir, I would really appreciate it.
Well, now, everything starts with Dana, his incredible passion, and where most promoters stopped going, and ESPN was so thrilled with us, whether we went to Fight Island, and that was his vision, and he made it happen. So when the pandemic first started, I guess maybe about 3 weeks, we didn't do anything, and then we started having fights in Jacksonville and went around, went to Fight Island. I think since maybe March of last year, we probably had 60 fight cards. I mean, it's just incredible. And this Apex that we opened here, what a godsend that was for us. It's a perfect kind of arena. It's like a big TV studio. And we were able to have fights every Saturday. And then we had the Contender Series in between. Now we started traveling. We've been to Houston and said Jacksonville and Abu Dhabi. So we're looking forward now. Next year we'll go to London. We have a fight in Anaheim in January. So it just keeps going. And now it's, excuse me, it's just a wonderful time. And but the vision and the passion that Dana has is unstoppable. And he made it happen. And I give him full credit. He's unbelievable.
Yes, absolutely. The man had a lot to do with this. And, well, I'm one of those guys that it's really thankful in a way because of the pandemic. I know it sounds perverse, but it's the pandemic that allowed me to explore these ventures, talking to people such as yourself, sir. So even though the pandemic, it has been pretty hard in so many ways, I still kind of hold a candle to it in a way because it enabled me to do all this. So, sir, before we let you go, I just wanted to thank you in behalf of every single fan out there, because it is the passion of people like you that make stuff happen. It is the passion that you've developed your whole career, is everything that you're giving to the sport of boxing, to the sport of MMA, to the contact sports in general, and of course every single other sport that you love. That kind of passion is hard to come by, and as a passionate man, I really appreciate this, and I couldn't find anybody else that could take us to where we are now in terms of the development of the sport. So I wanted to humbly say thank you, because you're one of the main reasons I kind of have a job now doing this. It's your effort that brings us all together. I would like to know, sir, do you have any message for the fans? Because you've been around the sport so many years. I'm not trying to retire you with these questions, because I would love to have you every step of the way, but I understand also that there's a family behind, and the wear and tear of traveling and all the bureaucracy of it all. I mean, it's pretty sure that I would be okay if you said tomorrow, well, my job here is done. All hats are off, sir, and off you go. But how do you feel about this? Do you feel that there is a long way to go still for you in the UFC?
Well, we're working on France. I had a call with the French today, and hopefully we'll go there maybe in early summer next year or in the fall. We don't have that locked down yet. So there's always hurdles that we're always going to self-regulate in certain countries. But for me, knock on wood, as long as I feel well, I don't like to look in the mirror and see all these spots and everything as an older man. But no, it's still fun. I love coming to work. I love the energy here. I like seeing Dana every day, and yeah, it's just I'm still enjoying it. And for all your fans, I would say con mucho gusto. It's been my pleasure.
Sir, it is our pleasure. Es nuestro gusto poder contar con usted. I would love for you to give a word or two to the fans in terms of what can they expect as a visit from the UFC in the near future here in South America. I'm going to get blasted if I don't ask this. Are there any plans of coming back? You said it a while ago, but is there anything solid that we could share?
Well, once again, there's so many protocols, and the COVID is still going to be with us. But yes, we want to come back to South America, probably Brazil to start with. But we have to make sure everything is right and getting people in and making sure it's safe. But it's a big market, and so the fans, when we have a fight, come on out. The energy, the excitement, and the fights. It's no matter how much you watch on television or wherever you watch in a bar or something, being there in person, there's nothing like it. It's very special to see a fight in person.
My first and only UFC experience was in 2018 when the UFC came to Santiago finally. And yes, that was the night that in a way changed the course of my life. I've never experienced such an energy. And right now, everything that I'm doing is to insert myself in that space again. Either it's in Vegas, it's in Brazil, wherever it is, I'll try to be there. And that's only because of that experience that you're mentioning, sir. So it was great to talk to you. I am so thankful and so humbled that we get the chance to pick your brain in a few things, sir. So congratulations on a great and legendary career. Congratulations on your UFC Hall of Fame induction. And thank you so much for being a part of this special week for us here at Fordewin MMA, sir.
No, it was that was a nice. You asked the right kind of questions. I enjoyed it, and yeah. So yeah, come to one of our fights wherever we are, and we'll talk again.
Of course, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, sir. Congratulations on such a career.
All right. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Got no time to relax, always working, no stop. Leave my soul on the track, bounce your head off the mat. This is one stop shop, got what you need in the back. Coming for the win, no weakness.